On this episode of One on One, we're going to take a ride, but not in a police car. We're going to go down the history of Chief Todd Duplantis. We're going to learn a little bit about where he grew up, what his life has been about, and now he's the chief of the City of Homa's Police Department. It's all next on One on One.
Every year in Terrebonne Parish, someone you know is either injured or killed in a boating accident. I'm Joe Waits Jr., District Attorney, and I'm here to tell you when it comes to alcohol, the same rules apply to boats as they do vehicles.
This year, don't be one of the arrests that I make.
Alcohol and boats do not mix. Get a designated driver.
So remember, whether it's boats or vehicles, the same rules apply.
Did you know that there are more than 180,000 amputations annually in the United States? The majority of those are preventable. If you have pain in your legs or other symptoms that suggest a problem, you'll be seen immediately at any of our locations. CIS is one of the largest, most advanced facilities in the South with an international reputation for treating peripheral vascular disease and preventing amputations. Call us before you amputate.
And welcome back to this program of One on One. I'm Martin Folse, and as promised, our guest today is the Chief of Police of Homa, Todd Duplantis. Chief, welcome to the program today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I got to sort of tell the story. For at least a year and a half, we were on the news desk always saying interim police chief, but it was sure, I know, exciting on your part when they finally ratified and you became the chief of the City of Homa. But it wasn't just given to you. Part of the reason I wanted you up here today is because you went from really all the way from the ground up to be chief. Before we get into that though, right, take us back to the earliest years that you can remember. Where did you grow up? Where were you? And start with your schooling.
Well, basically, I grew up in Homa, born and raised Homa. My schools that I went to, first to third grade, Honduras Elementary. We moved to Grand Calle. I went to Grand Calle Elementary for a year. We moved back to Homa. We're born and raised on Myrna Street, right off of Howard Avenue. Mm-hmm. And went to Honduras Elementary, back to Honduras, went to Elysian Fields for a year. From there, went to Oak Lawn, mm-hmm, Oak Lawn Junior High. And then from there, Ellender, before it was a high school. Then we moved to Berg, where I went to Montague Elementary, and then I ended up graduating at South Terrebonne. So I'm pretty much born and raised throughout all areas of Homa.
Mm-hmm. How did that help you? Because I can remember on some early episodes of The Beat, we used to ride and you had your canine dog with you. Yeah. So let's jump to the police office. And first of all, before we get into all that, what made you want to be a police officer?
Well, in high school, I always wanted to work. I was eager to get to work. And on my 16th birthday, my mom brought me to various stores in town to get a job as a bag boy. First store was National on Grand Calle Road. Went in there, I filled out the application. Was all excited, young boy in school, just trying to make some money. And I remember I went back the following week to check up on it, and I asked him where my app was, and he said, well, it's right here, and he had a list about this thick. So I knew my chances of getting hired were slim there. So I ended up at the Winn-Dixie on Prospect. Yeah. And I went in there and I spoke to the managers, and he says, well, hey, if you fill this application out and bring it back to me, I'll hire you. And I was shocked. I said, wait, you're going to hire me? He said, yeah. So needless to say, I filled the application out right on spot, and he hired me. And that was on my 16th birthday. So I was hired at Winn-Dixie as a bag boy, pushing shopping carts, mopping floors, and what have you. And I worked there through my high school years. And my brother became a police officer during that time. It was around 84, 83. And then I started thinking, wow, what a wonderful job, to where you can, go out, help people, I mean, it's never the same, always an experience. And so I applied for the police department, and it was a long traveled road at that time. It was constant trips back and forth to the police station, meeting with Captain Dixon. Charlie Farmer was the chief at the time. And I was told if I can get in office with the chief, you'll get hired. So I knew I had to do that. And I kept bothering Captain Dixon. I'd call him every other week, and he would ask me, who is this? Who's this? I said, this is Todd Duplantis. And eventually one day I was able to get in with Chief Farmer, and I was hired, but it took me 6 months.
I remember Chief Farmer. I remember Chief Rhodes was in office when I first started.
Right.
Then, of course, we had Chief Farmer, we had Chief Jack Smith.
Yeah.
And you go Chief Callahan. You could go down the line, Chief Boudreaux. We had, I think, wasn't Angus Babin chief for a little while?
He was assistant chief when I was hired. Yes.
I don't know if he was the interim chief at any point, but I
think he was. I think he was interim chief during that time. Yes.
Yeah. So you had a lot of people to learn from throughout the years, and everyone had a different style. And I could think back to Chief Farmer. Whenever I go get a news story from him, he would sing a country song in his office. So you had a lot of different chiefs to learn from. Did you take a little bit from everybody and then put your own style to it?
Yeah, I sort of did. I learned from all of them. You know, Chief Farmer, what I remember about him, he was a very respectful man. When he walked down the hallway, it was very respectful. And he used to arm wrestle a lot of the officers, and he would beat them.
Really?
He would beat them. And Jack Smith, Chief Smith, was a very respectful man. He was chief for 8 years as I was a patrolman. And he was, again, a very respectful man to me. And when he walked down the hallway, you knew he was coming.
You knew the chief was coming down the hall.
Oh, you knew the chief was coming. Chief Callahan, utmost respect for him. I mean, I respect all the chiefs that I've worked for. I've worked with all of them. I enjoyed working with all of them, and I've learned a little bit from each and every one of them.
What are we having for lunch?
The 10-piece combo, half regular, half boneless, original hot with fresh cut seasoned fries, homemade ranch, and a nice cold Coke. How about you?
New glider sandwiches.
The what?
New glider sandwiches. Perfectly delicious fillets of 100% white meat, sauced in my choice of 9 mouth-watering flavors, served on a freshly baked yeast roll. Oh my God.
I'll have what she's having.
The new glider sandwiches, only at Wingstop.
The Homestead, Homa's newest and most luxurious assisted living community.
I wanted companionship, and I made a lot of friends here. I knew a lot when I came here. Well, we have sort of a buddy system. We try to help each other. I just feel safe. Everything is secure. I had made up my mind I was coming.
For more information, visit thehomesteadweb.com or call us at 985-223-HOME. The Homestead on Cottage Drive. The lifestyle you deserve, the services you want.
I guess that's what strikes me about you, is that you're a company man, and you paid your dues to get where you are, and it wasn't about the easiest, but you got there, and now you're there, and so basically the same respect entails you that really you bestowed upon everybody else. You got to pay your dues to be chief, don't you?
Yeah, it's a tough road to travel, and if you was to tell me 25, 26 that I would have made it, I would have never dreamed that when I was first hired. But it's been a tough road. You know, I worked 20 years in car patrol, and K9, some K9 years in there. And then when I started promotion as a sergeant, I was still in car patrol. And when I became a lieutenant, I took over the traffic division, and there was just other many details that it entitled. So it was a learning experience for me. It was a tough road. I've been to every street in Houma. I've practically been to every incident you can dream of. I've been to every incident, couple shootings. Haven't been shot at yet, thank God. But it's been a wild experience, a learning experience. And I try to give something back to the guys, the young guys that come in. I guess one of the biggest thing I learned as a police officer, when I was first hired as a police officer, it was kind of like when I got out of the academy, you were told, forget everything you learned in the academy, and you were put on the street. And you don't learn anything in the office, you don't learn anything anywhere like you're going to learn on the street. And there was really not, you know, they gave you a car, you rode around with an officer. Now times have changed, and when I first started, it was pretty much, you know, the understanding I had was you go out and write tickets. You go out and write traffic tickets. The more tickets you write, the better police officer you are. So I used to write 20, 25 tickets a day. I mean, and this is an 8-hour shift. And in 1990, Chief Smith called me in the office one day, and Chief Jack Smith, and he sat me down, and it was after I wrote 30 tickets at the Safeway on Main Street. That's still the South Feed and Seed where it's at. I wrote 30 tickets, and it was an 8-hour day. I wrote 30 tickets that day. And he called me in the office, Chief Jack Smith, and he looked at me and he said, Todd, he said, I know you're thriving to be a good police officer. He said, but you're going about it the wrong way. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he explained to me that what he was looking for in a police officer was an all-around police officer. In other words, don't write, if you're going to write traffic tickets, write a little bit of everything. Don't just write stop sign, speed, you know, you write a little bit of everything. Be a all-around cop. Patrol everywhere, you know. And he gave me a good talk that day, and I walked out of his office that day and I said, you know, if that's what he wants the all-around cop, that's what I'm going to do.
Wasn't that his way of telling you too, you were writing too many tickets? Well,
yeah, it was his way of telling me I was writing too many, but what it was, my mind was too focused on one thing.
Right.
And it wasn't on the all-around consistency of the job. I mean, it's not about just writing tickets. Right. It's about helping people, the community, patrolling the residents. In other words, everybody's at work today. These officers should be out patrolling residents. At nighttime, patrol their businesses. If you got problems of areas, traffic, don't just concentrate just on speeders. You know, do it all around. And I kind of learned from that. That was a discussion that I learned, and I walked out of that office that day, and I did it that following year. And I mean, I turned from ticket writer to Duplantis to all around, and he actually awarded me Police Officer of the Year in '91.
Well, so obviously you listened to him.
I listened, and he told me that. He called me and he said, you actually listened to me. But I try to tell that to the younger officers nowadays, and I try to tell them that it's what you do now in your career. You know, if I was to stay in that path I was going on, Martin, I wouldn't be here today.
You wouldn't be there today, but you would have wrote about 10,000 tickets.
I would have wrote 10,000
tickets. You'd have got Ticket Man of the Year for sure.
Right.
But no, so I understand your point. He wanted to round you to the community.
Correct.
And I see you doing a lot of that as chief now with Neighborhood Watch, and I'm seeing you implement programs that aren't necessarily done for the bells and whistles of it all. You're doing things that really are to the core of police work. So it's not always about the glamour stuff that you put in. Sometimes you got to go back to foot patrol, and you got to put a cop on a bicycle downtown every now and then. You got a little old-fashioned in you, don't you?
Yeah, I watch a lot of Andy Griffin. And actually, back when I was younger, I didn't watch much Andy Griffin, but I watch a lot of it now, and I actually learned a lot from watching it. But when I first, you know, as I was coming up in my career, I just kind of sat back, and there's a lot of things that were going on, and I find that police, you know, the way police would conduct activities, not necessarily saying it was wrong or what have you, but I find that there's a lot of ways we can do things better. And I think it was people, you know, just wanting to be straight up with the people. I remember when I first made interim, I wanted to get in the community, and my way of getting in there was to go through Neighborhood Watch. I went in, my first meeting was at Dumas. I went in there, and there was a lady that stood up, and I introduced myself to the group, and she says, you know, Chief, the one thing we ask is just don't lie to us. I mean, if you're gonna tell us you're gonna patrol. You know, don't tell us you're gonna do something. So, and I told her that's not something I would do or what have you. So I think it's just being honest with the people going in. And I mean, if you're going to tell them, if they're going to tell you there's a problem, you need to address the problem, and you need to report back to the people that, you know, hey, you telling me about this problem, I addressed it, and here's the action that I took.
One thing I admire about you, and I told you this before, and you don't see it in all public officials, but you had some accusations thrown your way at one point. The Houma Police Department had a lot of accusations thrown its way at one point. Every time I would call you, and one time you called me and says, I want to come on your show because somebody accused me of something and I want to face the public with it. I never picked up the phone. You did. I always admire that. You do believe in transparency, don't you?
Yeah, clear with it. In fact, I have a lot of resonance, you know, because all what we've done over there, and I say we, I mean, it's not just my accomplishments. I want to say, I mean, I got a fine group of people that I work with at the police department, hard workers, and but we've worked very hard, and you know, like I said, it's transparent. I got one resident called me last week. He wants to know about our image progress, and I told him, I said, hey, I'll come in your resident, I'll show you what we've done. So I'm not trying to hide anything from anybody, and you're right, there were some accusations made, and that's why I wanted to throw it on the table and resolve it.
And you did, and you were exonerated.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying on the show that night, I will be exonerated,
right.
And you were, and I mean, that told me a lot about you.
Right, well, I knew, well, it was false information, and I knew it wasn't, you know, I knew I was going to be exonerated.
And of course, you told me you spoke with your wife, and she stood by your side, so there's a pretty good partnership there, isn't there?
Yeah, it's a good partnership. She struggled along the way, and you know, so it's been very tough on my wife, and she's a strong person, and she's been standing behind me.
Mm-hmm. What's the one, and look, God, I know there are some characters in every department. Got some funny ones, some serious ones, everything, but what's the one thing that you try to do as chief to keep the police that are comedians, the police that may have a bad week, the police that want to do it by the book and don't want to miss anything, so their reports might be 2 or 3 pages long? How do you keep everybody focused on the same page?
Very hard. To be honest with you, I think I'm a lot of hands-on, Chief. I mean, I know pretty much every employee over there. I know what their job task and title. I pretty much know what they're doing, and I kind of stay on them a little bit, maybe a little bit too much. I mean, I've been told that they tell me, look, slack off, we're going to get it done. So,
or for lack of a better word, would they consider you, let me just say it, anal?
Yeah, I think at times they may consider that, but I guess what I give task out, and a lot of times I expect it done too soon maybe. And, you know, they tell me, look, you know, you just gave me that task yesterday. This is going to take me a week to do. So those are the things that I do. But I think to try to get everybody to work together and what have you, it's a tough task. And just, I think I have to be involved. As chief, you got to be involved. As a top guy, you got to stay involved. I think a lot of people want you to know. They want you to know, hey, look, I did this task. And a lot of them will do that. They'll come and they'll tell me, look, I did this task. It makes the department look good. And I'll commend them on it. So it's a lot of that.
By the same token, you have to go into a parish meeting every Monday morning and report to the parish president. So you've got to give him details too, don't you?
Yeah, I got to keep him abreast of what's going on, and every meeting there's tasks, there's that I must do. There's our departmental policy is constantly a revolving book that has to be constantly changed and what have you. So it's a very tough task. It's tough.
Together a crew of top specialists, and you can do amazing things. cardiac care at TGMC. It all begins here.
When it's down the line, when you're not chief anymore, what are you hoping that Chief Todd Duplantis now would have instilled in the police officers and the police department? How would, just like you're reflecting on Charlie Farmer and Jack Smith and everybody else that came before you, when the next chief takes over and I'm interviewing him or her, how do you want him to describe Todd Duplantis?
I would hope he would describe me as taking the department during a time of need, and that taking it to a making a lot of progress with it. The neighborhood watch groups. I mean, you know, I would hope that he would look at it as a positive within the police department, that we actually did a lot of good.
Now, in fairness to you, you've been taking over when the parish president said, "Clean up your act, or we will no longer have a Houma police department." So that pressure to get that right was put on your shoulders. And the last time I talked to the parish president, he said, and he was pleased with the image of the police department. That had to make you feel pretty good.
Yeah, it does. He talks to me pretty frequently, and he's very pleased with the job performance, and he's told me, just, you know, the neighborhood watch, he's 100% behind that. And he said, "Todd, you know, that's some of the things you got to do. You got to get in the neighborhoods and reduce crime." I mean, that's what it's all about, and so that's what we've been working to do.
After all, isn't that what a police force is supposed to do?
That's what we're all about.
Yeah.
It's
Sometimes you get caught up in too many of the peripheral, and you don't
reducing crime. That is the top priority, is reducing crime.
All right, now we're going to have a little more fun. What's your favorite song of all time?
My favorite song is Brooks and Dunn, "Believe." Okay. I like that song.
You a country guy?
Yeah, I like Brooks and Dunn. I like country music.
All right. Your favorite movie of all time?
Grease.
Grease. I never ever would have picked Grease.
I like Grease. I must have seen it 20 times. I like Grease.
Please tell me you don't sing all the soundtrack.
No, I don't sing.
You do know some officers at the police department are going to have a field day with that answer.
Oh, I'm sure.
You expect it, though, don't you? All right, Grease. All right. What's your favorite? I know you said Adam 12. Favorite cop show of all time, movie or whatever. Did you like Dirty Harry or any of those?
Yeah, I like Clint Eastwood. The Clint Eastwood movies. I used to like some of the Clint Eastwood movies. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm going to keep this question going because it works so well with Dr. Glenn Mansell that I'm going to ask it to you. If you happen to have been stranded on Gilligan's Isle with the rest of that crew, who would you have liked better, Ginger or Mary Ann?
Whew, that's a tough one.
And once again, your wife is listening.
Yeah, Ginger or Mary Ann? I guess Mary Ann.
Mary Ann? Why?
Ann.
Why?
I just find Mary Ann was always prettier than Ginger. I don't know, but I don't know. She was Ginger was just maybe a little bit too much going on there.
You know, when you get home, your wife's going to go, "Mary Ann, huh?"
Yeah.
So, the one word. We're going to get to the last question, and I appreciate you coming on. You have done a great job as chief. We appreciate that. If I got your wife in a room, and I got your family all in a room, and then I started pulling in some of the police officers, and I pulled them in a room. Then I went and get Jack Smith down the road, and I went and get Orville Callahan, Charlie Farmer, and a lot of those guys, and put them in a room, and I said, "Give me one word to describe Todd Duplantis." What's the one word you'd hope they'd pick?
Hard worker. I think just hard worker.
So you right back to that blue collar mentality again. I noticed in a lot of your things, and you weren't handed police chief. So you really believe in the process and the hard work and the stocking of the shelves at Winn-Dixie. there's no other way you'd have wanted to earn this. Huh?
No, and I try to tell that to the officers. A lot of the promotions and a lot of the moves I make at the police station, I base it on the work. I mean, I just look at the officer, look at the work that he does, and I just, you know, I've worked hard all my life, and as chief, all the way up to as chief, and I'm still working hard. So I'm very respectful to people that work hard.
In closing, there are some comedians at Houma PD, some funny people, and ever since the early days that I can remember, the Charlie Farmers, the Jack Smiths, the Orville Callahans, the Pat Boudreaux, there's always been someone who could imitate him to the T when it's said and done. Are you aware of anybody at this point who could imitate Todd Duplantis, or are you a hard person to imitate?
I think I would be hard to imitate, but I think there's one individual that's done it already. At least he tries to do it, and that's Sergeant Kyle Falk. But I think he can do it to anybody. I think he's imitated all the chiefs, and he's done me to a few occasions.
Have you ever caught him?
Oh yeah, I caught him a few times.
Maybe you need the right ticket.
Yeah, he's pretty good at imitating, I tell you.
All right. Well, we appreciate you joining us today. Keep up the good work, and thank you for not only have you earned your way up, but you've earned a slot on one-on-one. So congratulations.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Chief.
All right.